When you first look at this log, it's hard to imagine anything beautiful coming out of it. Twisted, cracked, rough. Just an old chunk of Manzanita burl that most people would toss aside. But here is what it became. This hollow form is a reminder that even the most unassuming pieces of wood can hold incredible beauty inside. If you want to see how it came to life, stay with me till the end of this video. This piece started as a weathered log of Manzanita burl, twisted, dense, but full of character, which made it the perfect candidate for something special. This burl actually comes from the root system of Manzanita, a tree native to California. Manzanita burl isn't just gorgeous, it's incredibly dense and hard. It ranks among the toughest woods I've handled, so it takes time, patience, and extremely sharp tools to shape properly. The burl log measures about 8.5 inches tall and 7.5 inches wide. I've already trimmed and shaped part of the burl log on my bandsaw to fit my casting mold, which is made from an 8-inch diameter PVC pipe. Before casting, I brush the burl thoroughly to remove any loose bark, dirt, and dust. That helps prevent bubbles and ensures good bonding with the epoxy. For areas where the bark clings tight, I go in by hand, using sharp chisels and other tools to carefully remove what's left. Here I'm setting up the casting mold using the 8-inch PVC pipe. To close off the base, I cut a piece of corrugated plastic sheeting. I seal it to the pipe with a bead of hot glue around the bottom edge. Inside the mold, I apply a line of silicone caulk to make sure no epoxy leaks out during the pour. On the outside, I reinforce the seal with another layer of hot glue for good measure. I use hot glue to secure the burl inside the casting mold. Since I'm pouring nearly 9 inches of epoxy, I use a deep pour resin formulated for thicker casts. For this project, I used 3 liters of epoxy. This rich Manzanita burl is paired with a golden epoxy to enhance its natural edges and make the contrast really pop. I also add some red gold shifting tone. Because the burl is heavy, I go ahead and place the mold inside the pressure pot before pouring. This avoids the risk of moving it afterward. Then I leave it to cure inside the pot for roughly 72 hours. Getting the cured piece out of the mold takes some time and patience. First, I peel off the plastic base. Next, I split open the PVC pipe along the groove I had pre-cut before casting. Using a couple of old chisels and a fair amount of effort, I slowly pry the PVC away from the epoxy. At last, the casting is free from the mold. Luckily, the epoxy set nicely with no visible heat cracks, and the casting looks solid all the way through. I mount the blank within centers and start trimming down the epoxy. At this stage, I'm just aiming to round the piece and turn a temporary tenon on the end that will be the top of the hollow form. Here I'm shaping the temporary tenon. It's only meant to hold the piece securely while I flatten the other end and glue on the main tenon block. Now I'm leveling off the bottom of the blank to prep it for attaching the tenon block. I use regular wood glue for attaching the tenon. I also add a ring of hot glue to reinforce the connection. With the blank held firmly in the chalk, I begin defining the hollow form's outer shape. First, I return the piece to a perfect cylinder and slowly ramp the lathe back up to 1000 RPM. The first passes are fairly heavy, which causes some minor epoxy chipping, but as I near the final form, I ease into lighter, finer cuts. I pause the lathe frequently to evaluate the cut quality and tweak the form as needed. If the epoxy has chipped, I smooth those areas out with scrapers using gentle steady cuts. Now I'm prepping the top of the hollow form for hollowing. I drill a starter hole with 4 center bits. For this project, I started with 2 inches bit and ended with 2.5 inches. This is the Clark dip hollowing system I'm using. Built around a 1-inch bar and extremely sturdy. It also features a laser guide to monitor wall thickness. The laser works, though it's not without a few quirks. Here is my shop-made steady rest. Working fine, and it's very sturdy. I start hollowing with a straight cutter to clear out the center. Then I move to a bend tool to carve the middle and belly of the form. Lastly, I use a straight scraper to clean up the interior. As the laser beam begins to stretch or vanish, that's a sign I'm closing in on the desired wall thickness. Finally, I blend the inside lip of the hollow form to match the outer shape and ensure a clean transition. Here I was more comfortable using a regular bent neck carbide tool instead of my hollowing system. I smooth it up using my negative rake scraper. I fill in any surface cracks or holes using CA glue. I use both clear and tinted CA depending on the area for the best color match. To sand the inside, I stick some adhesive-backed sandpaper onto a foam-wrapped stick. I sand the whole piece starting at 40 grit and going up to 180 grit. I stop at 180 because I'll be applying an epoxy finish, and I want enough tooth for good adhesion. Filling cracks and holes with CA glue may need to be repeated during the sanding process. After sanding, I wipe down both the inside and outside of the vase with denatured alcohol to remove dust and prep the surface for finishing. The first coat is a layer of epoxy. I warm the resin slightly before application to help it flow more evenly. To coat the inside of the vase, I pour epoxy directly in, then pour it back into a cup, allowing it to safe level for about 10 to 12 minutes. For the outside, I mount the piece on the rotisserie motor. As it slowly turns, I apply the epoxy with a silicone brush for a smooth, consistent coat. To eliminate surface bubbles, I lightly wave a torch across the epoxy. Then I leave it to spin overnight as it cures. After applying an epoxy layer, I sand the entire surface up to 220 grit, giving it a smooth, clean finish. For this project, I applied 2 coats of wood 757 tabletop finish from Clean Armor, slightly sanded between coats. Once the top coat cures under UV light, I sand the surface starting at 220 grit and finishing at 1500 for a silky smooth finish. Once sanding is complete, I wipe down the surface with window cleaner to remove any dust. To buff it out, I use Yorkshire grit. First the original formula for initial smoothing, then microfine to get a brilliant glassy polish. I begin separating the hollow form from the tenon with a parting tool, then complete the cut using a Japanese handsaw. I clean and sand the bottom of the hollow form, then apply the same Clean Armor finish to keep the look consistent and tough throughout. Finally, I give the whole piece a wax buff to add extra luster and a touch more protection. And that's it. This red Manzanita Burl and golden epoxy hollow form was both demanding and incredibly satisfying to make. I hope you enjoyed watching the journey. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's next. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next build.